All right, everybody, welcome to BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. And of course, we have the people's captain. We've got Gunnar Miller here, also AKA Vice President of Sales at 12 Point Logistics. How you doing, sir?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you for having me, sir.
Yes, sir. Hey, listen, we got a couple things we want to talk to you about today, but I want to know this right off the bat. Is the claw for real? I just want to know. I've seen the claw. Is that for real?
Listen, I believe the claws came out with the Von Erichs back in the day, probably Sportatorium, that's probably around Texas. So you guys would probably know this a little bit better than I would. I've never been put in the claw. I've seen some very high-level athletes and wrestlers from back in the day, Hall of Famers, get put in the claw, and they didn't survive. So is it real? I don't know. I've never been in it.
They
But I've seen
haven't
some very
survived.
bad men go down by it. So
All right, I like it, dude. That is the best answer, and that is the most political answer I think I've ever heard. All right, Gunnar, let me tell you. Let's get to know you a little bit here. Obviously, the one of the most exciting things that we were talking about earlier is your time playing football over there at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. Loved it, didn't you?
I did, man. I loved it. When I came out of high school, I wasn't highly recruited as I wanted to be, but my goal and my dream was always to get signed and play Division I football. My sister was a Hall of Fame softball player at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, literally started the program in the early 90s. She's 17 years older than me, so, I wanted to kind of follow in her footsteps, and Chattanooga gave me a scholarship offer when Coach Huseman came in as the new coach in late 2008, so I signed in February 2009, had 5 years there. Was 4-year starter, team captain, won a Southern Conference championship, and got to represent my city. So, I'm honored and humbled to be a part of that, and I'm grateful for my time there.
How did that football career change your life and your trajectory on how you view life going into today?
Yeah, I would just say that there's a lot of things that you can learn from playing sports. I was raised from, parents that also raised a Hall of Fame softball player, and they raised us the exact same way, just in different decades decades for the most part. But what I would say I learned is just that so many different things you can carry over from sports into business, that, especially when it comes to leadership and team building and just the small, knowing your part, doing your job, and understanding that your role is very important. So those things can kind of transfer over into trucking or any type of business that you might do, especially sales, with us being competitive. But football is very important to me. It allowed me to grow. I was able to find my failures and my successes. I broke my neck a couple times, so adversity was a big thing about it. But getting to play at the Division I level against other Division I athletes, you really get to see who you are and and what you're made of. And sometimes I was the hammer and sometimes I was the nail. But I got to get a little bit better every single day, and I think those are aspects of my life that I'll never get to do over again. So I can only look back as memories and take from them and build.
I'm just going to say, from everything that I've learned, ever read, or ever saw on TV, breaking your neck is never one of the better moves, right? I'm just going to ask you, that's probably not something you want to do or go out as a goal today, right? I mean, you right?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I would say if there's, 3 things that you probably never want to do in your life, one of the top 3 would be break your neck, obviously, especially playing football. And listen, it sounds a lot worse than what it was. It was my C5, C6 vertebrae.
Uh-huh.
It was the nerve that was running through it. You could also call it a really, really bad stinger, because I didn't require surgery on any of them. It was hairline fractures that just literally shut my arm off, both arms at sometimes. But the worst one was the first time it ever happened. It was my redshirt freshman year. I missed a tackle against Elon. I got up to hit the pile because I was just upset with myself because I missed the tackle and I never should have hit the pile. My arm went away, never came back. It came back 6 months later, completely atrophied. And I didn't know if I'd ever play football again. Nobody knew if I was going to play football again.
Wow.
So spinal decompression kind of fixed that, but it was a long, strenuous process.
Probably never piled on after that day, right? Ever again.
Oh no, I'm hard-headed. I did. I'm very hard. I broke it again 2 more times, so I don't learn from my mistakes, I guess.
You were a good wrestler in your time, Georgia Wrestler of the Year in 2017. Had a lot of fun doing that as well, right?
Yeah, I grew up a pro wrestling fan from the time I was 6 years old. when I was at the UTC, I actually struck up a relationship with a former WWE Hall of Famer, the Ultimate Warrior. Not sure if anybody knows who that is, but if you don't, you can Google him. He wears the face paint. He's a big jack guy. He unfortunately died in 2014, but we struck up a relationship in about 2010, 2011. And from that time, I started getting recruited by the WWE, Gerald Briscoe, who would go out and recruit athletes, not necessarily wrestlers, but athletes so they could transfer into wrestlers, because we all know that wrestling is entertainment first. So I went down there and had my tryout, Performance Center, and then I started wrestling and doing logistics in the exact same week in June of 2014. So my careers literally parallel. At the beginning, logistics was plan B, wrestling was plan A. 2018, I blew my knee out and found my fiance, and started growing our family and kids and stuff. So I went all in logistics in 2019, early 2019, and that's kind of where we're at. But yeah, pro wrestling was awesome. I still do it once a month. I'm currently the Southern Honor Wrestling Champion. I just won it this past Friday. So I do it once a month, the first Friday of every month in Canton, Georgia, if anybody wants to come out.
Wow, that's awesome, man. And you know what? You got to be what?
You want to see the belt?
Yeah, and I'm surprised you're not holding the belt up right now and just showing us. You know what I mean? I'm okay with that stuff. Yeah, I mean it's good stuff.
I would. So I've got a 7-year-old. His name's Marcus. He's my biggest fan. He's the only reason why I'm still wrestling. He has the belt. It's in his room. He carries the belt around. He's the champ. So I let him have the deal. I take it on the show day. He gets to have it the other 29 days of the month. So he can have it.
We accept that answer.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what? He should have Dad's belt, right? I mean, that's awesomeness. All right, so let's go on to 12 Points Logistics. How did you get there, and what do you do there now?
Yeah, so started working for a company called Lipsy Logistics in June 2014. Johnny Jones gave me an opportunity there when most people wouldn't, because I was doing the wrestling and logistics thing, which is very hard to balance. As we know, both careers take a lot. You guys have a wrestler in your office, and everybody knows logistics. So I did that, for about 5-6 years, and then in 2020 started getting reached out to by a startup, 12 Point Logistics. They were in the greater Chattanooga area. And, I was at a company with over 100 people doing a lot of money, doing high-level government freight, doing a lot of stuff. And here's a startup that's reached out to me to do sales. And that's the one thing I haven't done. I was a tracking manager. I was a broker. I was carrier sales. I was procurement. I'd worked on flatbed. I'd worked in high-level projects like FEMA and our hurricane team. Done all that stuff. Never done sales. So they wanted to bring me over in sales. And my fiance at the time, or my fiance now, she was like, hey, just go ahead and give it a shot. If anybody can do it, you can do it. Go over there and see what happens. So it was a lateral move as far as salary goes, but I was going to get a commission for things that I sold, and I got lucky. I'll say got lucky. I guess luck is when hard work, meets preparation, all this stuff, good timing, and all that jazz. But second day of the job, landed my account. That account ended up being the largest account in the company's history, and literally got us to where we are today, 3 years later. So it's been a good run. It's been awesome. I've learned a lot. I've had successes. I've failed. I've gotten a lot better as a sales rep during this time. I've only been really doing sales for about 3 years, but I feel like I've been doing sales my whole life, because in football, you're having to sell yourself to teams and recruiting, sell yourself to coaches to play. In wrestling, you're having to sell yourself to sell your merchandise, to get on shows, to get the crowd to react. So I feel like I've been doing sales my whole life. I've just now been able to put it into one lane, which is logistics, and really get the most out of it.
Let me ask you a question, and here I got notations here, but what is some of the most hardest things that you find in sales? I can already tell that you're pretty much, it's pretty easy to tell as I talk to you, and I've talked to you before and on the show, it's pretty easy to tell. You never really met a stranger, right? Honestly, Gunner, you don't really meet strangers. You just meet somebody, that, hey, we hadn't talked before, but let's go ahead and talk about old times. That's pretty much how you are, right? I pretty much gather that by you.
Yes, sir, and that's kind of how I've been my whole life. My dad, if you think I'm like that, my dad is like me 10x, right? My dad literally never meets anybody that's a stranger. I'm actually an introvert, probably at heart. Like if we weren't doing this interview, or if I was just walking down the street, like I'm to myself. I like to be in my thoughts and be thinking and creative and stuff like that. But I also have this switch, and I've had it from sports, I believe. Like when you step onto the field, turn that switch on. When you're doing an interview, turn that switch on. When you got to jump on a cold call, turn that switch on. When you got to write an email, turn that switch on. Like whatever you got to do, just turn that switch on and make it happen. I've always been able to do that when the light turns red, and I've just kind of carried that on. So I treat sales like professional wrestling. Whenever I pick up the phone, I'm walking through the curtain. And I'm not walking back through the curtain until that phone hangs up. So I'm going to give them 100% of me the entire time. I'm doing that right now with you guys, just trying to be as present as I possibly be, and as honored and as humbled to be a guest on your show and provide some type of value and entertainment to your listeners.
No, I appreciate that, and you know what, that says a lot about not only your character but about how you're going to be going forward. I want to know when you got into trucking, because when you jump here and you jumped into, what are some of the biggest challenges that you learned moving out of that Lipsey Logistics and over here? What were some of the biggest challenges you faced right away?
Sure. So some of the biggest challenges I faced right away was working environment. Like I literally went from a company that was doing hundreds of millions of dollars, doing FEMA freight, and they have their own trucking company and 100+ employees, to it was back to me and 3-4 guys in a garage space that hadn't been built out yet. So it almost humbles you again, gets you back. You're like, all right, this is ground floor. Push comes to shove, we got to make something happen right here. So when I was out there making calls and doing my thing, the biggest challenges, I guess, is I'm a guy that wants something right now. So like if I realize that when you're talking to a customer, there is a sales process. There is a journey that you got to go through, right? Now, the better you get, maybe you want to try to limit the time from beginning to end. But obviously, when you're first starting, it's not going to be a one-day thing. So I struggle with, wanting something wanting a deal or an account to happen right now, because my largest account, the biggest deal that we've ever done here, it literally happened in one day. It was one phone call, another phone call, boom, 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 boom. We're signing paperwork, we're set up, we got a load. And that just happened to be, when's that ever happen, right?
Not usually.
So the 6 to 12 to 18 month, long sales cycles, that's what I'm going through right now, these bigger accounts, and just trying to navigate those waters of the corporate mentality of transportation and logistics, and trying to get them to buy into my non-corporate version of how I sell and stuff like that, because I'm not your cookie cutter salesperson. I'm more of a podcaster, wrestler, athlete turned stuff. My metaphors and my analogies are all going to be sports. It's just going to be probably something they're not used to, but it makes me stand out, I believe, because it's probably a conversation that they haven't had twice in one day.
And these relationships that you're developing, and that's pretty much what you're doing. You're going out and you're developing these relationships. How important are the relationships, not only that you're creating, but the ones that you've had in the past, to you in what you do every day?
Yeah, I mean, you got to have a power base. If you're going to sell anything, whether it's a product or a business, whether it's B2C or B2B, you got to have a power base. Who's your power base? That's your family, your friends, anybody that you've literally touched in your life. Reach out to those people. Don't be scared to reach out to those people. Leverage those people. Those people know many people, and those people might just know somebody that ships something. And we're in the business, we're in the freight game. We're trying to ship things for people. So everybody knows somebody that has shipped something or needs to know somebody that needs to ship something. Leverage your power base, and then outside of that, then you can start working cold calls, because your power base is going to give you the confidence when you're doing calls that you're not going to get hung up on every time we're told no every time. At least these people might be more welcoming to listen to you, to let you practice your sales pitch. And it's all repetition, right? Just like a sport, just like anything we're going to do. The more reps you get, the better you're going to get. So I think the people that say, hey, 100 phone calls a day, yeah, there's a place here and there for that. I'm more of a quality guy over quantity until there is no quality, then I need quantity is what I say. But as far as that goes, you got to get the reps in to be able to get better, and I think there's no better way to do that than connecting first with your power base and then going into cold calls.
Did you? And here we are in the end of 2022, going into 2023. It's obvious to you, having been into trucking for a little bit, the market changes dramatically year to year over the last. We've had some of the biggest swings that we've had that I've ever seen in trucking. How does that play a big part into what you do every day?
Yeah, well, you got to be able to pivot. You got to be able to understand what the market's doing. You got to be able to analyze the data and kind of be able to think for yourself and see where's it going. Which areas are trending up and trending down, and what's our carrier base look like, and what's our customer network look like, and how can we maximize this the best way possible? Do you have assets? Do you not have assets? Right now, I love December, because December is the perfect time of year to brainstorm, to plan, to put together systems and processes for 2023, but it's also a fantastic time to analyze what you did over the past year and not just think about what you did good. I mean, everybody can just talk about the things they did good and post the screen grabs and screenshots and post them on LinkedIn and get likes and high fives. But you really want to focus on the things that you did bad or not as well as you wanted to do, and work on ways to make that more efficient. So I think that's what we should be doing right now in this time. And it's a perfect time with it being December and the market going down over the past couple of months. We're really going to see in 2023 who the big players are in the freight game, and not just the pretenders that are sharing in inflated numbers that pretty much anybody could have had over the past 2 years, because anybody could have made money in this past market. It's getting back to more of a normal market. I wouldn't even say it's a down market. I'd say it's like back to almost like 2019. It's a pretty normal market to where it was. So now, once it levels off at where it was kind of before pre-COVID, is it going to go below that, or is it going to kind of stay the same, or is it going to go up a little bit? I think it's hard to tell. If you look at DAT, they literally have like 4 or 5 projection models that show it doing each of the above, which is like a weatherman saying it might rain today. But I don't know. I'm optimistic about it. I think that we're probably going to see the market turn for a little bit in the better, maybe like Q3 going into Q4. I've seen some people say as early as spring and Q2. We'll just have to see. But I think Q3 we'll start to see some things go back up. But I think we're in a normal market. I think people are just freaking out because they've only been in the game for 3 years.
We talk about that here a lot on this show here at BCB Live. We talk about the market and its role going on right now, and how many people jumped in with both feet last year when you just couldn't make a mistake. And here you are. We do truly believe that there's going to be a little thinning of the herd as we move forward here in the market. So let's get on to your podcast. Tell me a little bit about why and what is Chat with Gunner. What brought you to do it? What is it about, and why do you do it?
Yeah, so I'll give you a quick origin story. So 2018, I blew my knee out, and I kind of had my first free time from life. I wasn't playing sports on the weekends for the first time ever, no wrestling on the weekends. I just had a lot of time on my hands, and these guys reached out to me locally in Chattanooga and asked me to do a pro wrestling podcast. It was called the 60-Minute Broadway. So I went and did that as just a guest. I was pretty much like a guest host. I didn't do everything. I didn't produce it or nothing. I just gave my voice. I'm a guy that likes to commit to things and stay consistent at it. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. I'm going to show up each and every week and do that thing. I'm not a quitter. So our goal was to do it every Thursday live on Facebook at 8 p.m. We did it for like 50-something shows, and then they kind of fizzled out. So I was like, listen, here's the thing. I'm just going to start my own podcast. I've learned how to do it. I appreciate all the help. But I'm going to start, Chat with Gunner. It was a play on words, CHATT, Chattanooga with Gunner. My goal was to be the Joe Rogan of Chattanooga, get anybody in that was an athlete, a businessman, people that do good things for the community, parents, dads, upcoming athletes, whatever. Give them a platform to shine a light on what they're doing and the good things that they're trying to share in Chattanooga, because we don't really have any news stations to do that around here either. And Chattanooga just doesn't do a great job of promoting Chattanooga. So I wanted to do that. I started literally in January 2020, which happened to be a terrible timing because I got like 12 episodes in with guests, and then COVID happened and nobody wanted to come into the studio. So I was kind of just sitting there with my hands in my lap trying to figure out how to do an hour of dead air time. So I did a lot of speaking by myself and covering topics almost like in a monologue for the whole year, almost like 12, 18 months. And I'd have guests here and there through Zoom. And then one day I was sitting here, this was probably spring of this past year, I was like, I'm going to quit focusing so much on sales, and I'm going to go all in on marketing. I'm going all in on logistics. I'm going all in on LinkedIn, and I can leverage my show with our company on LinkedIn because I already have 2,000 followers on YouTube. I just need to get those people to watch on LinkedIn the community of logistics and shipping and the people in the freight game. So I was like, I'll just bring Chat with Gunner to LinkedIn and start going after people in sales and logistics and shippers and whoever. And my goal was, I put out a message earlier in the year, I want to meet and talk to as many people in the freight game as absolutely possible before the end of 2023. I only had a couple thousand followers at this point. Those were mainly connections, probably like 2,000 going into the year. And now I'm going to go into 2023 with 7,500 followers, people that watch my show weekly, people that are begging to be on the show, people that are asking me to come on their shows. And and I'm starting to learn a lot about personal branding and marketing and how that can transition into better sales and more success in the future. And I'm trying to teach that to my sales reps. And I'm trying to get that mindset across for 12 Point as well, but really trying to hammer that home on LinkedIn and be a positive voice of, hey, go out there and build your personal brand so that you can raise your company's brand and both people can have success.
So if and I just want to ask, you can and how often do you do your podcast, Gunner? Weekly? Do you do it once?
Yeah, so when I first did it, the goal was to do one every Thursday, so at least 52 times a year, so weekly. As I started doing them when I was in my office throughout work and stuff during working hours, I would try to do as many as I could during a week. So I don't really have a necessarily amount. I at least want to do one a week, but the goal is kind of to do like 1 to 3, even if one's a solo episode, to get a couple of guests in there as well. Going into 2023, I'm really focusing on the freight game aspect of it. So instead of doing live interviews, I'll probably go recorded and go on specific topics within the game and then push those out and try to get some big players. Not just everybody. I want to give everybody a platform, of course, but I also want to get some big players in there to teach on some good topics. That's some quality value, and that's my goal in 2023.
Absolutely. And if they want to reach out and listen to Chat with Gunner, they can get that on most LinkedIn, YouTube, and just about everywhere else that you can go out and get a podcast,
yes.
Right?
Yes,
All right. And if they want to reach you over there at 12 Point Logistics, they can also get you. What's your? Is that VP of Sales? What is your website?
So it's 12pointlogistics.com. You can go over there and check us out, and you can fill out the blanks in there and get information from us. You can reach out to me, first initial, last name, G. Miller at 12pointlogistics.com. Literally, if you DM me on LinkedIn, I won't miss you. I'll get back with you. That's where you can find me most of the time, and that's the best place to connect with me. All
right, fantastic, man. I do appreciate you jumping on today, Gunner, a lot. Coming in and let us know who you are, what's going on. I do appreciate it. Before you get out of here, though, I ask all my guests to do a favor for me to state their name, who they're with, and that you're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Can you do that for me?
Absolutely. Hey, man, I'm Gunner Miller. I'm the Vice President of Sales at 12 Point Logistics, and you're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation.
All right. Thanks, Gunner, man. I appreciate it. Hey, Merry Christmas to you and yours, and we'll talk to you soon.
You too, brother.